So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, VST. Thank you, Mao, for having us. So this morning we'll be having a session on my title is Why Architecture Matters. So I've seen the list of speakers for today, and siguro just to put everything in perspective. So we are already on day 6, and today we will be discussing all about backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. So sabi ko, just to set everything so that everyone is on the same page, let me first define what backup is. So backup is essentially recovering data after data deletion or corruption, or simply to recover from data from an earlier time. Disaster recovery, on the other hand, is it assumes that the primary site is not recoverable. So kumbaga, sa kabilang site tatakbo. And next is business continuity. It is the capability of an organization to continue. So ituloy-tuloy lang yung services following a disaster. So all of these definition I am mentioning this morning kasi this will be the foundation of the messages of my presentation. But so to start, eto I've heard from so many vendors. I think everyone is talking about this. Data is the new oil. This has been delivered. This message has been delivered for decades. I would say over a decade. But it is true. Data has been growing exponentially. And today's focus is all about information. So if you will see this graph, data started to become more valuable than ever. That's why you will hear analytics today. That's the reason why we're talking about backup. We need to protect something that is very important for us. No? And if you see yung mga we call it waves, the information wave halos hindi pa siya nagpi-peak, meaning it will be there for a very long time. So remember this. So your customers and ours, they think about their information. Next, another thing. I'm sure everyone has heard about this saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Diba? Ito, sa nanay ko, naririnig ko to. And the reason why I'm showing this is, today, again, we're talking about backup. Backup is protection. Backup is insurance. So, what if we can design an architecture that will allow us to minimize, no, to minimize the possibility of data loss? So that is what we're going to do today. So we're going to discuss backup, disaster recovery, and also business continuity. Okay, so let's all start with information architecture. So today, kung titingin kayo in Metro Manila especially, you will see a lot of skyscrapers, tall buildings. And before these buildings start, there's a long planning between architects, engineers, and they use technology. Ayan, uso sa atin yung earthquake. People say a lot of these tall buildings, they actually move, parang may rollers. So comes with the skyscraper is the use of technology. So if you will see this picture, makikita nyo, oy, solid to. Parang this is the foundation. A lot of steel. Then as it grows, as you progress, no, nandiyan pa rin. Part of the plan, solid siya. And then eventually you meet your end objective. And everyone knows these two towers are the World Trade Center. And alam ng lahat, ang World Trade Center, ayan, sometime years ago, two planes hit each building, making each building no longer available today. So the message here is no matter how much planning and design, it is prone to disaster. So our role as I call ourselves consultants to our vendors, is to ensure whatever solution we give them can withstand any disaster. Remember, information or data is valuable. Pag nawala to, some companies would actually be losing losing their existence, not only money. So when it comes to information infrastructure, this is what people are saying. The storage where information and data resides is the foundation. So this is what we need to protect. So all this entire day is all about protecting the information, protecting the data that we and our customers store on the storage. Okay? So, ayan. Nandiyan na yung ating unang emoticon. No? So, some realities in information unavailability. So, statistics were gathered and they say availability through planned outages. Ayan, sample is backup, reporting, extracts, application data restore. Over 86%, ito yung nangyayari. And a lot of cases, especially in the past, when these activities happen, hindi nila inaalaw any other process. I don't know if you've done online banking at a particular time, sometime in the evening. Sometimes you cannot log in kasi they're doing maintenance. At least they say they're doing maintenance, but essentially, some of those banks are doing batch runs. So as far as an ordinary user is concerned, like me and you, data is unavailable. Hindi ako makalog in. Then, the next is operational recovery from failures. Ito yung talaga may nangyari. Database corruption, ransomware attack. I've heard my friend from Commvault say all of these things. Some even component failure, sira yung hardware, or simple as human error. So any of these things, when they happen, they render data or information unusable. And lastly, ito, a small percentage, but it can be disastrous. Continuous availability through these occurrences. This is the actual disaster. Baha, fire, earthquake, or even nowadays, contaminated building. So all of these things we have to have in mind, and we need to think for our customers, kung mangyari ito, how can they continue? So the operative word is continue with their business. So bakit ba natin pinag-iisipan yan? Because of this, the cost of downtime. So sometimes, depending on the company, there can be several impact when they go down. One is lost revenue. Yung iba sabi nga nila, money you can always regain that. But the thing is, the company reputation. This is the most impactful among all of these that you see on the screen. Sometimes people, they actually fail to recover from such impact. So ito yung biggest impact. That's why we're doing all these things. Ito, next. So take note of this mechanics. Another game. This is separate from the emoji. So the mechanics. So I will show several photos in the next slide. Tapos, the objective is to identify the word. So one word that best describes all of the different photos flashed. So initially, kung titignan nyo individually the different photos, wala siyang connection. But if you put them all together, you would see, or at least you will easily identify. English or Tagalog doesn't matter, and this is where I would need Mao and his team's help para masabi. The first to type the word in the chat with the correct spelling will win the prize. And ano yung prize natin? It's a Huawei Idea Hub shirt. So for those of you who attended the session of my colleague Ian last Friday, so Idea Hub, eto, meron tayong t-shirt. Ganyan yung itsura niya. It's navy blue with Idea Hub. Ready? Thumbs up if everyone's ready. So here are the photos. So first to actually input in the chat. Ayan. Tas Mau, you just tell me later, okay? So meron na ba? Wait, tingnan ko lang. Ayan, sige. Okay. I think I saw the correct answer. So the word that we are looking for is either protect, protection, or anything that actually resembles that. Okay. So this is our topic for this morning: how to protect information to ensure users have access to the data. So let me bring my whiteboard. So the way we should design it, we should look at it in any in any angle. One is we should have all of these from the component. You can start any point and extend it to any distance. So this is going to be the way we will design the eternal. I was talking about the eternal infrastructure. So it will be local or remote, and the factors we need to consider is time, the availability, and the distance. Some industry would have to follow some regulations. There is a minimum distance between the two sites. So the thing is, we need to help customers manage risk and align their protection. So information protection, where do we start? So when we talk about backup disaster recovery, two terms will always surface. And ano ba yan? It's recovery point objective and recovery time objective. So this is the definition you see on the screen. But my alternative definition is RTO is the amount of time which a business process must start to avoid. So kunyari, nagkaroon tayong disaster today. Anong oras na ba? At 10:18. For your customers, what can they say to their users kung anong oras sila pwedeng mag-up? Kunyari, nawala yung system. Or if it's a bank, nawala yung kasa, yung core banking. Anong oras sila pwedeng sabihin? Is it by, after 2 hours, 3 hours? So that's the recovery time. And this is more important, the next topic, the next term, the amount of data loss, which is RPO. So a lot of people they don't want to call it data loss, but in reality, it is what it is. Recovery point objective. So how far back from the time of disaster? So let me put this in some graphical way. Ayan ang dami na lumalabas sa emoji. Reminder, just note it down. Ayan, and you will receive the back kung kayo ang manalo. So, daily backup. Ayan, I've seen when we talk to different organizations, traditionally, when I say traditionally, a lot of customers, they do have this process and they do this once a day, traditionally. Some, they do it more often, but majority, they do it once a day. Ano ba yan? So backup, namimili ka ng oras, after 24 hours, you do backup again, and then so on and so forth. For some people, they do, apart from backup, snapshots. So ang nangyayari is, more frequent. So pwede kagabi, let's do it this lunch, mamayang gabi ulit. So depending on the business, depending on the resources they have. But today, customers are more demanding. Sabi nila 24/7, hindi ako pwedeng mawalan. So what if we can provide an architecture, an infrastructure that will allow your customers to actually recover from any point in time? So instead of 24 hours recovery, ito ang tagal ng RPO nun, no? 24 hours or snapshots, probably 12 hours. Why not every 10 seconds, for instance? So the amount of data loss will be very minimal. So for the others, they do this before any activity. But for a lot of our customers, they do this every 10 seconds, every 30 seconds. So they factor in the resources required. Kasi the impact of downtime is significant as compared to the resources that they will be acquiring. Okay? Points in time for recovery. Ito, there will be prices and there will be tokens. I'll be showing yung unang gagawin natin practice. This is also a game. So the practice, we will have some mental exercise. So the first one, and this is a practice, pero unahan pa rin, I'll show you a picture and tell me what the picture means or what the phrase is associated with the picture. Ayan, tingnan natin kung may mga sumagot. Ayan. Nakita ko na. By the way, be careful with your spelling. So mamaya, that will be one of the requirements. So tama, the picture is think, ayaw play. Think outside the box. Ito, next, ito, unahan na to. Mau, I need your help again. So tell me what this is. Okay. Ayan. Ang dami. Okay. Okay, tama. I saw the right answer. Read between the lines. So mamaya I will check who was the first one. And you will get the token. Next. Oh, dali. Nakita na. Nagkakaroon kasi technical difficulty. But it was growing pains. Ito, last for this slide. Tell me what this is. Ayan. Sige. Mamaya I will check. But essentially, yung 6 na 9 na nakikita nyo, talagang 6 nines, literally. What is 6 nines? 6 nines is essentially 31.5 seconds. 31.5 seconds is, in a year, the amount of downtime, the maximum, pinaka amount of downtime that our OceanStor Dorado can commit to customer. And that is, by the way, system level reliability. If it's solution level, we can go as high as 7 nines. So you know what that means? You can tell your customers, sir, I can almost commit to you that your information will always be available if you put your data, your system in our solution, in our architecture. So ayun yung ibig natin sabihin. So how do we do it? In different ways. And let me give you some examples. Ayan ha. Panayalabasan na emojis, I just like to remind everyone about it. So let me just build this slide. So our architecture, we use what we call the smart matrix. Smart matrix is architecture wherein we implement global interconnection and load balancing. Ibig sabihin niyan, we connect anything and everything all together. Lahat, there are multiple points of connection. And that is the reason why, if you will notice, we could withstand 7 controller failures out of 8. So let me give you a visual. Ito, what you see here is a big plane with 10 engines. So takpan natin dahil 8 lang yung ating example. So imagine this. You are in this plane and ayan, nagkaroon ng disaster. So the engines sumabog. 7 of the 8 engines. Yet, this plane can still run smoothly, can land smoothly, and can bring you to safety. This is the level of commitment you can tell your customers. Again, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The only thing that your customers are concerned about is, how do I keep my data accessible anytime and every time? Again, planning for a disaster, why not have a robust infrastructure? Okay? So ito, this is the level of availability. Kung titignan natin, how do we compare? So we can prepare for all sorts of disaster. Next, how do we push the boundary of high availability? And we redefine a lot of things. So first, again, we mentioned about the smart matrix. Let me build this slide out. So hyper CDP, kung nakita nyo kanina, continuous data protection. So what we do is, every so often, depending, I have one customer today, ang sabi nila, probably every 10 to 15 seconds, I would want to have a copy of my data. So if in case of any disaster, ang babalikan ko is 15 seconds, konti lang. So ang kaibahan nito is it uses lossless snapshot, meaning wala siyang impact sa system. So you can continuously do this. Next is we also do hypermetro. So what is hypermetro? So if you talk about disaster recovery, 2 sides. One is, ano bang klaseng replication ang gagawin natin? So if your customers ask, ano bang klase ang meron kayo? Ang tanungin natin is, what kind of replication would you need? So we have asynchronous, we have synchronous, and we also have active-active. What is active-active? This essentially is what we can give to customers for business continuity. So imagine this, kung may masira the primary site, customers will continue their operation on the secondary site. Huh? So we use two arrays, and kagandahan nito, you don't need extra component. So I've seen a lot of solutions in the market today where they say, oh, we can also do active. However, kung gusto mo nun, ay, bili ka pa nito, and you manage it separately. So you make things simple. We make things simple. Next is, we also have a, andali ayan, we also have a program. Kasi over time, hardware, ayan, nauubos yung warranty, and kailangan palitan. So we also have a program where we can offer customers a simple replacement of their existing. Ililipat natin yung data without any downtime using our technology. So again, thing that you have to bear in mind is keeping the information up and accessible. So ano pa? Another example. So assuming this is one enclosure with a lot of disks. So disks is actually the foundation of any storage systems. So ang pwede nating sabihin is, we can withstand not one, not two, but 3 disks failing at the same time, and yet accessible pa rin siya. So when you look at other systems, meron din naman yung iba dyan eh. So yung iba, they could withstand up to 2 disks failures. So why do we do this? Kasi disks today are becoming larger and larger. And as disks become larger, over time, it creates a possibility of a disaster happening to a disk. So we need to have this as an added protection. Next, recovery. When a disk fails, the system, ayan, kung narinig nyo na, RAID would kick in. RAID is the protection that allows the system to recover from a failure. So recalculate. Traditionally, for a 1 terabyte disk, any system would typically take around 5 hours. That is too long. Kasi when you are doing RAID recovery, that means that you are exposed. If there's another disk that fails, chances are there will be data loss. So what if we can shorten it to 15 minutes? So the data reconstruction time is radically shortened. So paano ginagawa to? So we use an algorithm that allows all components in the system to help in the reconstruction rather than a select few. Diba? Kung meron lang gagawin, mas maganda lahat ng component pinagtutulungan i-reconstruct, and that's why it is faster. Next, disk reliability. Ito, I've one customer, I think 2-3 weeks back, sent us an article. It was one of those articles written to probably scare a lot of people. Ang sinasabi, some disk manufacturers are going away or probably will stop supplying disks to Huawei. So that is okay. What not a lot of people know is Huawei, we actually build our own disk, and we don't need a third-party disk company to actually make disks for us. Reason is, we believe that disk reliability is the foundation of any storage. This is where all information of your customers would be residing. So Huawei made tremendous strides in research and development to improve disk reliability. So there's a lot of technologies that we built in the system, and let me show you some examples. Ayan. So alam nyo naman, disk, imbes na the SSDs, instead of having these mechanical drives, yung mga light pulses. So the disks, ang nangyayari dyan sa mga SSDs, over time, as you write to the disk, it affects the lifespan of the disk. So ang ginagawa ni Huawei is it ensures the wear leveling of all disks in the systems pantay-pantay. And then at the latter stage of the life cycle of the particular disk, it has this intelligence, the anti-wear leveling, increase the service volume of a particular disk. So ano ibig sabihin nun? So una, pantay-pantay gagamitin yan, no? Para lahat, load balance and everything. Then, pag nasa may tail end na, ifo-focus ni Huawei ang pagsulat to a particular set of disk. So ang ibig sabihin nun, mas mabubugbog ibang disk, and now it will automatically alert that there is a pending problem that will happen to that disk. Kumbaga sa gas, mauubusan na ng gas on those disks. And then what will happen is we can actually replace it, and then the system will automatically recalculate, recompute, and then redistribute, and then start kicking in the leveling, the wear leveling as what we call it. So meaning it may have sounded a bit technical, pero the system will automatically calculate. It's that intelligent. It automatically calculates the amount of writes that we put in a particular disk. Another is we have intelligence built in the system to ensure that every data written on disks is accessible. Kung hindi siya accessible, there's a change in parity or whatever, it automatically alerts the users on those things. Next, so these are just some of the intelligence built in the disks. So again, this is not present kasi ang nangyayari in the past, different components you put together and then it needs to integrate with one another. So these technologies, these features, we were trying to request from the different disk manufacturers. But of course, they manufacture this not only for Huawei, but for all other storage vendors. So nangyayari is, of course, they have to check their R&D. Gusto ba natin gawin to? So oftentimes, they don't do it. And because we want the system to improve, ginawa namin to. Another thing. Ito, another emoji. I think, is that the last one? So we also have this program level availability wherein the chassis will be up to 10 years. So there will be non-disruptive data in place upgrade. Ano ba yan? Right now, we have the V6. Over time, there will be V7, and then over time, there will be V8. Imagine, parang you have a car, we are changing engines while the system is running. No? So nagpapalit tayo ng engine while the system is running. Like ito a plane, pinapalitan natin yung engine habang lumilipad tayo. This is data availability at its ultimate. No? So this is the eternal architecture that I was mentioning. So making sure the system is in place. Lastly, so I talked about how solid the system is. By the way, it's also extremely fast. So we made a lot of innovations on the storage system that makes it extremely fast. One of the things that we've done is to improve some of the components, particularly the CPU. So yung CPU na ginagamit namin dito is actually not the mainstream CPU. It's an ARM-based CPU that has more cores, and every controller has 4 of each. Not only that, we also use other chips to perform other functions. And the reason for that is, before I was telling some of my customers, imagine this, you go to a restaurant, and then once you enter the restaurant, somebody opens the door for you. Pag upo mo, somebody will give you the menu. May kukuha ng order. Pag nakuha na, this order will be given to somebody again. That somebody will cook the food, yung chef, and once the food is done, it will be served. And pag tapos ka ng kumain, busboy will bring it out, and then cashier comes in. So all in effect, 4 or 5 different people. So it's the same with storage technologies. Different data services are happening, different rights. The problem with the design of traditional systems today is all of those data services So you write data that is not a data service. The writes from the users, the RAID compression, the deduplication, the snapshot, the disaster recovery, all of those is being handled by one or probably at most two processors. This one is being handled by multiple processors. Not only that, multiple chips, which is dedicated for each function. Ang result is it is faster and it provides, in fact, in one of the testing, SPC1 testing, benchmarking, 21 million IOPS. So this is ideal for the ultimate tier 0 application. Okay. So a lot of other features that are incorporated in this. So it is solid, it is fast, and it is very intelligent. Hmm? So another thing, this one I purposely added because a lot of concerns is brought about simply because of the name of the manufacturer. So I'd like to include this. So when it comes to information security, our system has these certifications. It's the most stringent among all the security compliance that you can ever have. So the ISO IEC 15408, it's the most widely recognized in the IT security validation. And then of course there's PCI DSS, which is required for anything that's got to do with credit card transactions. So all of these, so major banks are using this system to make sure their information is protected. Okay, so with that, let me end this session with a video. Okay. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this session. Thank you, VST. Thank you, Mao, for having us. Let me check if do I have time to answer the questions?
Go ahead.
Ito. So a lot of global companies are veering away from the China corridor, and knowing that Huawei is owned by Chinese, how do you entice companies to use Huawei technologies? One is, let me share. Before I joined Huawei, I was working for over 2 decades for two large US-based organizations. And for those companies, probably we were subtly brainwashed on those things. And bottom line, when you actually read through it, think about it, a lot of these things are just political in nature. Classic example, backdoor. You may access daw, may loophole daw yung security. If you actually do a wild search in Google, backdoor problems of any, even US-based companies, they have it. Ang sabi nga ng iba, mukhang takot some other countries because they themselves are doing it. So to answer your question, how do we entice companies? So we show them the technology, and then we share with them some of the big companies who have implemented. A classic example is DBS, the largest bank in ASEAN. They replaced all their infrastructure with Huawei. So imagine this, one of the largest global banks, the biggest in ASEAN, is using Huawei. OCBC is also using it. In the Philippines, there are several banks. I don't think I can disclose them yet. Pero the largest bank in the Philippines is using Huawei as well. Several other banks are using their core banking system, yung pinakapuso ng kanilang business on that. So it just goes to show the reliability and the comfort of these companies. True enough, it's perception versus reality. Even, in fact, nakakadagdag nga eh. Sad to say, yung mga nangyayari sa mga Scarborough show. So it's this perception. It has nothing to do with technology. But I do believe that a lot of customers are very intelligent and they owe it to their organization to do in-depth study and understanding of the product.